Welcome to the Brickie Experience today, everyone. So glad that you're joining us. Today's podcast is on service, and I cannot think of a better example of service than our military veterans and the people that are currently serving in the military. And so we have very special guests today that are Brickie staff members who were in the armed forces. And before I introduce them, I think it's really important to say that we honor all of our military servicemen. And we just have a special place for them in our hearts for all the sacrifices that they have made. And in addition, I wanted to let everyone know who knows Colonel Booman. He is not joining us today because he is going to be on an upcoming show. So let's get down to business, and we're going to be talking to, we have Airman Stephen Marcos joining us today. We have Major Carroll today, and we have Tech Sergeant Kenneth Coughlin. All of these are Brickie staff members, and we're going to get to know them a little bit better and understand all of their services. So let's welcome our guest. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for all that you've done for our country with your service and the sacrifices that you made. And we also want to say that we thank your family members for all the sacrifices that they have made along the way. So we want to tell the Brickie audience some things about you. And so let's start with what branch of the military you served in, or you still may be serving in, and what did you do in the military? So we'll start with you, Mr. Marcos.
So I served active duty Air Force for 6 years. I was part of an air crew of a C-130, part of the rescue squadron. From there, after my time in the active duty Air Force, I served in the Indiana Army National Guard for 3 years as an infantryman. And then currently, I'm a Air Force reservist down at Grissom. I work on aircraft as a machinist and a welder.
All right, so still currently serving. Yes, all right, Major.
I was in the Army for 20 years, retired in 2020. For the first 6 years of my career, I was an electrician when I enlisted and worked my way up to a construction supervisor. Went back to school, got a bachelor's degree, and became a commissioned officer in the military as a second lieutenant, and then worked my way up as an engineer in the military and retired at the rank of major after 20 years.
All right, that's incredible. Thank you for all those years. That's a lot. Yeah. All right, so Mr. Coughlin, how about you?
I served in the Air Force, and I started as a PJ, but in the indoctrination that we were doing, I got recruited to go to presidential support. I served there for 4 years, and then polish chased out of the presidential support and actually went to crash and rescue with the fire department. Right. And that's where I ended my career.
I know all three of you have incredible stories that you could just spend hours talking to them about their service and some of the things that they have experienced. And we're going to get a little snapshot of that today. So what inspired you to serve in the military? Let's start with you, Mr. Marcos.
One thing that inspired me was initially I'm a Brickie alumni, class of 2011. I did JROTC for 4 years here at the high school, and that set me up for a good foundation for success in the military. But also, I really was interested in travel and adventure and excitement, and that's something that I really held on to when I joined the military.
All right, that's great. How about you, Major?
After high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, so I went and got an associate degree. After a couple of years in college, I figured there was more. I went to school in North Dakota. I grew up in the Midwest. I knew there was more to the world, and I knew I needed to see it, but at the same time, I knew I wanted to go to school, but I didn't want to pay for it. I didn't have a scholarship or money from my parents, so I thought, well, the best way to see the world and get some free education was to enlist in the military. So I thought, what the heck, went and talked to the recruiter, enlisted, and then 1 year turned into 4 years, turned into 10 years, and 20 years later was serving in the military. But I had no real aspirations to serve that long, but I just continued to work, and all the opportunities just kind of unraveled as I stayed in. So it was a good opportunity, good mix.
Right. What a distinguished, long amount of time that you served in our country. So we thank you for that. How about you? What inspired you, Mr. Coughlin?
Truthfully, it was the ambition of not knowing what I wanted to do out of high school. I knew
a lot of people are like that.
Correct. It was a great big world out there. I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to see things, and what better opportunity to do that is potentially serving my country and then just learning what the world has to offer me.
Wow. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the challenges that they may have faced when they were in the military. So they're going to talk to us a little bit about what were challenges and how did you overcome them. So we'll start with you, Major, and just talk to us about some challenges that you faced while you were serving and how you maybe overcame them.
Yeah, so I think I'd talk about a couple different challenges, more on a positive challenge. Growing up, being an athlete and playing sports my whole life, I knew that, I had a pretty decent work ethic. But after about 6 years in the military, I was sent to a survival training school. It was about 30 days long in the heat of Missouri in the woods. And essentially, you were sleep deprived, you're not given a lot of food, and you're basically training how to maneuver with small elements to attack the enemy. And it was after about 25 days of doing rigorous work and really finding the strength to keep going that I felt like I wanted to quit. Honestly, I'd been pushed to my absolute limit. I had never been pushed that hard in literally anything in my entire life. And I had a mentor at the time that I was going to the school with. He was like, "Hey, just tell yourself you'll quit tomorrow." So I think that was a mentality that I kind of adopted for the rest of my life, that when things get hard, just tell yourself you're going to quit tomorrow. And then just don't quit tomorrow. Just keep telling yourself that every day. And eventually you're done. And eventually you look back and you're like, wow, that was hard. But I made it through it. And I've kind of relayed that message to some of my students along the way, some of the cadets that we work with. And it's just a great mentality that things get hard, just persevere, push through, tell yourself you'll quit tomorrow if you have to, and just keep going. I think more on a harder challenge, I spent a lot of time deployed. Unfortunately, I joined right before 9/11. I joined the Army in a time of peace where war didn't exist. Everyone was joining the Army for free college money, and there was no real thought of ever having to go anywhere. Well,
Right, no threat.
no
right?
threat. So I joined in 2000. Shortly after 2003, terrorist attacks happened, and the world was different. I'd spent a
Very.
lot of times deployed in harsh climates, and one of the hardest challenges I ever had in my life was they had just extended our deployments from 1 year to 15 months. So I was deployed thinking I was coming home after 12 months, just to find out I was being extended another 3 months, and that was, that hurt. And that whole time I was deployed, literally our job was to drive around about 5 miles per hour, staring at the side of the road, looking for bombs. So I was mentally exhausted. I was physically exhausted. I was kind of at my wit's end with the military, and it was challenging. And it was one of those resilience checks in your life where you're like, all right, I got to do this for 3 more months. I've got people looking up to me. I've got soldiers that I need to lead. We're going to figure this out together, and we're going to get through that. Everyone's going through the same thing at the same time. So, that was one of the more difficult challenges I had in my life.
Yeah, and just to think about the amount of lives that were dependent on you when you were trying to make sure that there's no bombs on the sides of the road, and just putting your own lives at risk in doing that. It's certainly a definite challenge, and we're so grateful that you're here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for the lives that you saved trying to make sure that the roads were safe. All right, how about you, Mr. Coughlin?
I'll talk about 2 challenges that I faced. As a young airman, I actually joined the Air Force in 2004 of January, and kind of adapting from a civilian atmosphere to a military atmosphere and learning I'm not just one, I'm one of many. And to learn that you have to rely on others in order to be able to succeed. So that was a little bit of a challenge. Luckily, I was very lucky to have great sergeants looking after me, and they mentored me. Then as I've gained rank, now I found myself in the situation, same as the sergeants. I have all these young airmen looking up to me, and they don't have a handbook for every scenario out there. So being able to be given a challenge, being able to think outside the box and be able to overcome those challenges, because you have a lot of people relying on you. It's not just yourself anymore, and making sure that everybody else gets to go home and see their family. So there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress there. But it's taught me a lot about myself, to be able to adapt and overcome and know that there's usually always a solution to any problem out there.
Wow, that is really, it's so true. And I love that you bring up the mentorship. And, in both of your cases, having to take care of people underneath you to serve other people as well. What great leadership qualities you both have. How about you, Mr. Marcos?
Yeah, so being an 18-year-old kid, I was sent over to the UK, and from there I went to Spain and Africa and all around the world. One of my biggest challenges was to kind of adapt to my surroundings and overcome, and then communicate with the the locals and get around from point A to point B. Really fun experience, though.
Fun experience, but a little challenging,
Little
right?
challenging,
There you
definitely,
go.
yeah.
All right. So let's move on to something that would be a memorable experience or lesson from the service that has stayed with you that you could share with our Brickies. So it's just a memorable experience. It's a lesson, and it's stayed with you all this time. Let's start with you, Mr. Coughlin.
So I had I'll talk about the positive. I had some great memories as far as when I was serving in presidential support, everything from President Reagan's funeral, President Ford's funeral, did President Bush's inauguration. I've got to meet Queen Elizabeth in the Oval Office. So I got to do a lot of things that I never would have been able to do in the civilian world. Then as we developed and we started kind of progressing, to learn that I had a sergeant kind of taught me a very valuable lesson that I keep dear to my heart of don't ever start anything like put off till tomorrow. Do it today because none of us are guaranteed the next day. And that could be from a civilian world to a military world to anything that you want in this. So it works really well.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. What an experience to be so involved in the presidential protection that you were providing. So thank you for sharing that. How about you, Mr. Marcos?
One of my really fun experiences was I got to hold the Olympic torch during the passing of the torch for the 2012 Olympics in England. That was something that always stuck with me. One thing that sticks with me too is teamwork. To have a solid foundation for teamwork, you got to rely on the guy and the girl next to you to get the job done. Absolutely.
That is really so important, teamwork. How about you, Major?
I think my entire military career was an experience. Honestly, I grew up in the Midwest, in North Dakota, a town of about 400 people. I graduated with 26 other kids.
Wow.
So to be plucked out of the Midwest and sent to Hawaii, of all places, my first duty station, I spent 7 years, was an absolute cultural shock. And I think my military experience can be summed up by just a series of different cultures, being deployed several times overseas and spending a large amount of my life living in areas that, weren't normal to me, I guess, growing up. So I think the experience of having several experiences in my life have been, one of the greatest things about serving that I take with me to this day.
Right. That is really, when I just think about the 20 years and how long that you spend in that, and truly, I think about your family and how much time that you spent away from them, and just how much you value freedom and freedom for others. And I'm just, and we're all grateful for all three of you. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right. So who's next?
I'll go.
All right, there you go. All right, if you could choose, and let's just talk about one principle or value from your service. One principle, one value from your service that you would share with the Brickies. What would it be?
So in the Army, we use this acronym called leadership, and essentially it stands for loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And they call it the Army values. And essentially you want to live up to all your Army values every day. And within all those Army values, I think duty and maybe selfless service ring true to me to this day. Sacrificing time and giving time at both ends is selfless in nature, and fulfilling your duty. If you say you're going to say something, whether it's in the military or in the classroom, students are going to hold you to that. So I think being selfless and doing your duty are two of the values that I carry with me every day.
Well, obviously selfless, that is for sure. How about you, Mr. Coughlin?
One of the biggest ones would be one of the Air Force core values, which is service before self. And it's not just in the military where you can actually live that and be true to that. It's in every aspect of coaching, teaching, in every aspect of your life of making sure that you put others before yourself.
Very good truths. How about you, Mr. Marcos?
Yeah, another Air Force core value would be excellence in all you do, which is something I live by. I try to give it my all for every task, everything, each day.
All right. So just some resounding things that you continue to hear, Brickies, from our Brickie military is service and just putting others before your own self. And if that is something that we could take from our military veterans and just emulate that and want to be like them, serving other people. And there's no greater reward than that. And so we want to just thank you for that. Let's just say that our Brickies wanted to emulate and you're role models for them. And again, we thank you for your service and all that you've done for us to keep us a free society in the world, indeed. So if they just wanted to start serving others and be selfless, and it starts in your own backyard. So at home, at school, in the community, what advice would you give the Brickies about wanting to serve others? How could they do it? What are some things that they could possibly do? So let's start with you, Mr. Marcos.
Yeah, I would say get out there and volunteer. One of the ways I got out there and volunteered was during my time in JROTC, helped out with football games, helped out with the food pantry, and, just helping others before you help yourself.
There you go. How about you, Major?
I think Hobart is a strong community that really prides itself on its work ethic. And I think there's tons of work that needs to be done every day, everywhere you go. So just
Hard work.
So just keeping your eyes open, looking for opportunities to make a difference, and then acting on it. Too many times can you just stay stagnant, watching something happen or not happen when you have the ability to make it happen. So just take the initiative, get it done, and look for those opportunities to make a difference if you can.
Right. And I think even too, when you're just even sitting at a lunch table with your friends and you could have a disagreement with them, instead of just like bickering and just serving them and showing them kindness, because that's really also what you guys emulate, is just showing that you are so selfless that it doesn't matter if people are unkind to you, you're going to be kind back. That's a huge message that I get from you as well. How about you, Mr. Coughlin?
I would definitely say there's no little task that isn't a big task. Sometimes the smallest thing have the biggest momentum. So don't wait. Go out there, whether it's helping somebody carry their groceries to their car or helping them across the street. There's no small act. Sometimes that little ripple of the water has a massive impact. And there's no time than today. Don't wait.
Right. And I think, when I think of Brickies and working hard all my life, I want to be a Brickie, work. Obviously, that is something that you have done, and you've done so well. We can't thank our military enough for the freedom that we have in this country. And we thank them for their service, all of our military. We thank their families for the sacrifices they have made when they have been serving. And you too can be like them. If you choose to do the military, we would thank you for enlisting. And if not, you can be a great citizen in this country to your friends, to your family, to your school community, to your community at large by choosing to be selfless. And that is an example of these three people right here. And I'm so proud to know you and to work with you. Thank you for sharing your incredible military journey. And we just appreciate that you're still serving by working in our school district. We can't thank you enough. So remember, Brickies, selflessness. That's what our military has done for us. And we can be just like them by serving other people. Be committed to others, and you too will make a difference in this world. Take it every opportunity to do for another human being, and you will be rewarded. There's no greater feeling in your heart than when you see that you've been able to make a difference for others like these gentlemen have done here. So I'll see you next time on the Brickie Experience, but go out there and show what great Brickies do. They are selfless, they serve other people, and we just will look forward to some of the great stories that you can share that our Brickie veterans have done as you've served other people. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you the next time on the Brickie Experience.